Hi, good evening. I'm Bonnie Hong, and this is Norwich Confidential. And Ben Hong is taking the day off. He thought that because of our guest, he would, between my guest and me, he would never get a word in the entire hour. So he thought if it was okay, he would take the night off. So let me first tell you who our guest is this evening. This is TALIBAH DOMIJAN. TALIBAH is one of Norwich's newest community organizers. I want to say activist because once you get to know her, she will get you moving, trust me. Hi, TALIBAH.
Hi, how are you?
Good. It's good to have you here. Thank you for coming in for us.
Thank you.
We've got lots to talk about. You don't have to be quiet. You know, it's like
a first.
It's a first. Well, you're doing a lot of firsts, though,
Yeah.
for you. You've been speaking to a number of groups. You've formed a number of groups, and you just got back just before you walked into the studio from speaking over at Three Rivers this evening. What was that about?
I was asked to come in and speak with younger teachers that would help us with our teachers understanding how to have that compassion for children that are less fortunate. Instead of you see them and you acknowledge them, but it's hard to understand where they're coming from because they don't necessarily put themselves in their positions all the time, or like see themselves in their shoes and how they're struggling, why they're coming to school late, why they're just not dressed appropriately for the weather. And by growing up with less and having those struggles as a child, it's a lot easier for somebody who's lived it to be able to explain it.
Are you saying
that's pretty much what I did?
You lived it.
Yeah, when we were younger, you know, everybody goes through trials and tribulations, and situations happen where, you know, you have one parent, you know, that's working and trying to do it all, and things slip through the cracks, and it's very easy to do as an adult to see that. But when you're a child, it's just, oh, I don't fit in, I don't blend in.
So were these student teachers elementary school teachers, or were they college
preschool
teachers?
And
preschool.
Yeah, kindergarten. It's really nice to see. They're really doing a lot of great work. I applaud them for taking on that job, and knowing that my son will be there eventually gives me a lot of hope.
I think we could, you know, at some point really talk about the difference in the education throughout the country. Mm-hmm. There's a big void in the type of education our children get. Even in the state, there's a big difference between the school that our children could go to on the eastern part of the state compared to that on the western part of the state, compared to that in maybe the northern part. Mm-hmm. You know, it's the quality of the school education in even one state varies.
Yes.
So
a lot.
It does.
And that was a big thing for my husband and I. As soon as we were, you know, got the news that we were going to have a baby, I immediately got that fear of, oh my gosh, how are we going to make his life better than ours was? Not that ours was completely horrible, but we wanted to do better, just to raise the bar a little bit more for him and make sure that he had more opportunities as he grew up here in Norwich that we necessarily didn't have. So we did start looking into schools. I was like 6 months pregnant and I'm already knocking on the doors like, oh my gosh.
You started looking at schools then?
Yes, we toured, I think, quite a few of the local preschools and looked into some of the Montessori schools. We had friends help us get tours, like the Integrated Day Charter School. We've gone to a lot of them, and they all have really great programs. And so then it was like, all right, we know that this is where his possibilities, but then fine tweaking that list for us. That was a bit more work.
Keith is just how old now?
He's going to be 4.
He's going to be 4.
On April 28th.
So you are looking for when, September?
Yeah.
To start him in preschool?
Yeah, every year I think we're going to try to look into that and keep on that. And once we get the right spot for him, right now he's in Park Congregational, which has been amazing. I love watching him go in, and actually in the beginning I was like looking in the window. The poor teachers dealing with us moms.
Well, you also have a moms group.
Yes, the Norwich Moms Club. I joined that. I heard about them through the Bacchus hospitals. They have a baby shower that they put on for new moms, and they also offer courses, and I took all of those. They had a lot of great classes, and throughout them all they kept mentioning this moms club, and I spoke with Keith, and he's like, yeah, you should try to do that, that would be really good. So I joined, and it was interesting. It was very different because it's all moms. The majority of them are stay-at-home moms, and it was just nice to see him having those interactions and watching him develop with other children.
So it's like play groups,
Yep.
Also for children.
And then they do field trips, like we'll go to the Niantic Children's Museum or other places like that, which kind of helped me lead into the Norwich Plays after doing the Voices for Family class, because we always left.
Voices for Family class.
Yes.
Which is?
That's a parent leadership program that's put on through the Norwich Youth and Families and Children's First of Norwich. They have these amazing programs for parents like me that don't know necessarily where to go, or don't want to follow the same path that we were raised on. We want to try something different, do different things. And they helped with that class on communication, speaking to the teachers, how to interact with them. We met with the superintendent of schools. She
Abby.
came in, yeah, it was really neat. And the mayor had stopped in, Miss Hinchy, she stopped in, and also Senator Kathy Austin. And they all had such amazing stories, and their jobs just so amazing. And through that course, we learned how it's possible for us to be able to do those same things and be a part of that, but in a more appropriate way. You have the parents that come in and just
Right.
So we don't want to do that. We want to be heard. We want to be understood, and also let them understand that we're here to support our child, not to berate you or, pick your job apart,
Right.
but to support you.
How many people were involved in that program?
There were 10.
10 people.
Yeah, 10 parents. Oh, well, 10 moms.
Were most of them? What were the demographics of most of the people that were in your class?
It varied. We had, oh my goodness, such an amazing group. My friend Mabel, I had known her for a while, and I didn't even know that she knew about the class. And she came in, and she had a friend from school. They were going to college, but she's got 3 beautiful babies. She just had her third, her little guy. And it was just such a nice mix that even when we didn't agree on something, because we were forming a group, it was the classes to come up with a class project that we can work on together. And while doing that, we're learning all these steps along the way, like grant writing and public speaking. So while we were learning those things, you learned how to work well together and figure out ways to work with different personalities that don't necessarily match yours or fit with yours. Usually when you're in a group, you find somebody you like and you kind of take off and you do your thing. But we couldn't do that.
Right.
And the facilitators were really great in showing us how we can make things work for us and work together by, wading the waters appropriately, wading through that nicely. And it was cool to learn and watch.
Because that's very true. You go into a group of 10 people, and the first people that you're going to gravitate towards are ones that you're going to feel, you think you're going to be a little bit more comfortable with, and then you kind of stay there.
Develop.
It takes a long time to move out of that, and because everybody wants to find their comfort zone first.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Well, this definitely took me out of mine. Since that class, it's been more apparent to me as a mother to understand how, even as a wife, you have to tread carefully, and how everybody's opinion matters. Whether you like it or not, you still have to understand where they're coming from, and there is where you can grow and make something big or create something better. So that's been really what's driving me, learning from all these new people and really learning how to listen and understand where they're coming from to be able to work together and make great things happen.
Well, one of the things I know you've been involved in is Norwich Plays.
Yes.
And when I first met you, we talked a little bit about this, and I was I know Norwich pretty well. You know, at least I thought I knew Norwich pretty well.
Yeah.
And when we talked, and I realized that you identified, what, 52 playgrounds?
There's about 51, 52 play spaces, rec areas for children to play with, trails. Oh my goodness, there's so much here in Norwich. It's unreal.
I had no, I mean, really, that absolutely surprised me. But then the second thing that you told me, which really opened my eyes a lot to the fact that even as a parent, I accepted the fact that these things did not exist. When you told me out of those 51 spaces in the city that you can take your children to, not one had restroom facilities for toddlers, not one.
Yeah.
And that, when I thought about it, I thought, you know, you are absolutely right. That was a big shock to me. It
And out
shouldn't
of
have
that,
been, but
our data, we
you did a survey.
yes, we did a survey, and that gave us a lot of information. But before we did the survey, we evaluated the parks, and the way that we did that is we went to each and every one. We broke up into groups out of all 10 of us, and we all went to those parks and had our children play and see what worked and what didn't work. After that, we decided, how can we get more information? I love data. I like to look up things and numbers and make them make sense. So that was really cool, with all the other moms feeling the same way and being involved in that sense. And after we did the survey, we posted online, and then we decided that we all need to be doing events around town. There were so many events this past summer in Norwich, with the farmers market down by Howard T. Brown Park. I think Karina and I did a couple, Stacy Lynn and Mabel did a few. We all had so much to do and be a part of that out of the 10 moms. And then there were some moms that had to work and couldn't do that. So it was really cool to see other people step up and be able to do that and still work together and not have that, oh, you know, I didn't do that much, or I did. It was really neat to see that a true team come together and make something beautiful happen.
Yeah. I think that what you're talking about is a kind of the way Rotary works. You asked me what the pin was when we first sat down, and Rotary, when it functions in doing an event, functions exactly the same way. Most of the programs should never be dependent on one person, that everyone kind of knows and buys into it, because they're really important programs. So, you know, it's that when you do that, you really develop a complete community.
Yes. And I actually joined the Rotary, the RCC for Norwich, because
That's right.
I felt that that also would help us get into the area where we want to support more families. These kids deserve that right of play, and finding and researching, as well as all the other 10 moms that were in that class with me, researched so much on ways that we can broaden that and bring awareness to how there's such a lack of it for everywhere in Norwich, even though they just put in all this money for these great parks and all these things that they're trying to upgrade. We found that there were just 5 real parks that people use here in Norwich. Out of all the schools, there's 199 people that took our survey, and that was from us sharing it online and getting out and going everywhere and doing the tabling events and getting the information out there through email. And they truly understood where we were coming from as parents and grandparents. Those were the largest number of people that took the survey, and seeing how they felt the same way we did. And even with the Moms Club group, most of our play dates were out of town. None of them were here in Norwich. Everything is so spread out, and it doesn't work for all the moms, and the Moms Club is huge. We have moms from Montville to Lisbon, you know, to Jewett City, Griswold, all around, all these towns, Prestons, that are involved in the Norwich Moms Club. And the majority of them leave Norwich and spend their money in Niantic. They have the Children's Museum. They have the little Gumdrops and Lollipop, which is a fantastic little shop with all the little goodies, and the kids have a blast. Even the water, the access to the beach is right there. So, you know, when your little ones get tired, you need somewhere to either change them, feed them, have a little privacy, use a restroom, and being that that's not accessible here, the majority of them do leave.
Wow.
It's a lot of money leaving Norwich.
It is. And I know that you have recently begun, we've both been very involved politically over the last 6 months or so together. And that kind of started you on being very active before the city election in November.
Yes.
And then you started attending
The city
council
yeah.
meetings. So, okay, your impressions of the Norwich City Council in action. I'm going to support you. I've got
Truly,
your back.
As a newbie, coming into this knowing that I want to find ways to make my son's life better as he grows up in this town and see what supports are there, getting involved. I joined the Norwich Democratic Town Committee. I've met so many amazing people here in Norwich, and my feel was, how can I down something when I'm not actively involved in it? So by getting involved and joining, I was told by friends, I've made so many friends in the Democratic Town Committee, and they were telling me that going to the city council is where you want to start. You need to begin there. And the first meeting that I saw with the new elected officials there was just before Christmas, and I was full of joy. I was so excited to be going, and was completely dumbfounded by what I saw.
Dumbfounded wouldn't be the word for it.
Yeah.
I remember you called me, and you were raging.
There was a few more I had in there. I was really upset because I felt like they had their eyes and minds closed to so much possibility here in Norwich. And to hear certain folks just focus on, you know, great programs that are being talked about here in Norwich, like instead of really listening and understanding it, even just looking at the information that was handed to them prior to getting up and voting on these issues, it seemed like it was just no big deal. And, you know, they're more, or in the beginning, were speaking about their feelings. They just had a vote on the docks down in Norwich. Now, every event that I've ever been through since I was a child has been at Howard T. Brown Park. Right. And the majority of the African American community that I know, we love that park and we party there. We have great times. There's so many great events. The NAACP uses it. Every group that I know of in Norwich, and there's still so many I need to know about, has done events there. And as a new person coming in, I don't know all the information, but what I do see is a place where we can really highlight Norwich and what it can be.
A community.
Oh, it would be beautiful. And a certain person had mentioned how, well, I don't have a boat and I don't see the point in this, and voted it down.
Do you have a boat?
And I'm thinking, I don't have a boat.
I don't have a boat either.
But I love that park, and I'm not sitting here representing the city. I'm not here sitting here talking about how, you know, we want to make Norwich great, but we also want to save money and do these things. Right. It's not about me. If I were in that seat, it would be about everybody else. You have to take yourself out of your own little bubble right. and realize this is a very large and very diverse community, and it just, you know, it really needs a little.
The other thing that struck me
little mix-up
was as we're okay. Time for a little confession here. Both Taliba and I are extremely active with the Bernie Sanders campaign. So just so that everyone knows, you know, that is where our heart is, and that's what we're working for a number of reasons. But doing that, there have been a lot of people that have just stopped into that office. Yes. One of the things that struck me the most, we've had a number of the black community actually come in to register to vote for the first time. And you were there at least twice with me. The first time, I was trying to convince the gentleman that, you know, we've got to talk with your friends. We've got, you know, I said, why don't you, I'll be really happy to come to your house. I'll bring some wine. And and then he saw you and he says, no, I want her. Because he was going to be more comfortable. And you were absolutely great in how you handled me, because he was then feeling absolutely comfortable. and you have a way of actually handling people in a way that does not put them off at all. The second couple that came in didn't have any problem in talking with both of us. However, you were able to connect with them on a level that I think only you could have connected with them, because you made the point that this was after the election, but they were in specifically to register to vote for Bernie. But you were saying it's more than, this isn't just about Bernie. This was about empowering them and making them understand that if every single black person in this community had registered to vote, they would own the city council.
And I still believe that. I feel as though even my family, it's so large. I mean, just the corner side of my family and the Wortham side, if we all came together and really put in a vote and got involved in the community, there would be more of a diverse representation for everyone on that panel. It wouldn't be just people with their different, you know.
They wouldn't be concentrating on me.
Exactly.
They would be concentrating on,
Yes, and really get involved in the issues of today. I mean, yes, it's a boat ramp, but yes, there are other things that need to be spoken as well. There are a lot of people that do live here and that would spend their money here and that would get involved and active, but when you see that, you know that they don't understand or can't feel where you feel in the city or in this town. So for me, that's my passion, is to let people know if you want to see change, you have to be about it. You have to get out there. I was horrified. I was scared half to death to get involved in all this stuff. But what brought me back down was my son. You know, it's not going to happen if I sit back and just sit on Facebook and write mean things or talk about what I hate, what I don't like. You know, it's much more when you get out there and you see it for yourself, and then you can have a real experience to talk about and share with other people and make them understand why it's so important for you to get involved, be active, find a way to make the change that you know we need to see. It's not impossible.
Actually, that was exactly why 20 years ago I became involved politically, locally. Because I had 3 children in this community, and as they get older, there is even less for them to do. So that you look around and you think, okay, I have to make some positive changes. You know, there's Mohegan Park was a good example. The road, I don't know if you remember what the old road up to Mohegan Park was like, but it was just this very narrow, windy road. There's no way a bus could ever get up through there, and it was difficult. We got a new road put in. You know, it was little things. Sometimes it's just little things that can occur. But
that's amazing. That those little things are what spiral into so much more. And you know, a lot of people are like, oh, why are you wasting your time? Why are you getting involved in this? They don't care. It's not gonna matter. And I'm like, no, maybe not for you, but for me, even if, you know, this situation with Norwich Place, which I love, it's our baby. We all, you know, put so much blood, sweat, and tears into that it's not going to fail in my mind. This is going to be something that we can talk about later on. You know, building an all-year-round play complex here in Norwich. I think that's a fantastic situation. And
you've set yourself up in a way that you will get other organizations to join in that effort. You will have RCC supporting that and getting involved in that. By having them involved, you're going to get both Rotary clubs involved. So, you know, what you're doing is going to spread. I mean, it's going to spread very quickly. So, but when you say, they say to you, what do you bother getting involved for? It's not really going to make any difference. That kind of attitude is so difficult to help people get out of. Feeling like their participation will make a difference. Because what happened at the second city council meeting? Did you feel better at that one?
Oh, no.
Yeah. And that's what causes the problem. No. That's when people, they go once or twice and they realize they're not going to listen to me. Why should I bother? I mean, look at all these good people that have come up in front of them with really good, and what they want to know is, how much more money is that going to bring into the city?
It's
Instead of
just
looking at what the benefit is?
if you have happy people and you take care of your children and you take care of your elderly, that to me is the most important thing. I can't, I don't know, for me growing up, we didn't have much of anything. At some points, you know, even being homeless and living in our car and growing up, my mother, and you know, she really worked to make us understand that this isn't really that bad. You know, she made it fun and gave us hope. Without that hope, then we would have been miserable, stuck in our bubble of, oh gosh, this is it. It's not going to get better. Where are we going to go from here? You know, but by her, even like going out for rides, you know, even though we were in the car, it was like a nighttime ride. We're going to go look at the stars. You know,
Right.
sleeping in the back of a station wagon, we were having a blast. We were having the best time ever, having a pizza. You know, those little pizzas that you could get cheap, it's fine, but we had a family meal. It was about us being together and being a family that gave us hope, you know, and we never, it's really interesting that we never really got so down on it until we were older and we realized this difference, the real difference. But younger, it was just an adventure.
And actually, even the way I grew up here, I had one parent. My father worked, my mother stayed home. We grew up in the project, up off of Asylum Street. And when you talk about going out for a ride, on a weekend, that's actually was what we did as a family. We'd get in the car, and my father would say, okay, you know, which, do I take a right or a left?
Yeah.
And we always thought we can get him lost, you know? I mean, it was an adventure. And it was real family time.
Yeah.
And we tried, Ben and I tried to do that with our children.
Yes.
Not so much just taking a ride, but having real family time. Games were really important. You know, I didn't play games with my parents because it requires a lot of talking.
Yeah.
You know, in between.
That's it.
You know, you really talk to other people, and when you are playing games. And we did that with our children so that we spent time not just playing the game, but talking about our week, our day. You know, the things that bothered them, the things that bothered us. You know, it was really learning about each other.
Yes.
That's what's missing, and
Yeah.
I think in a lot of homes.
It is.
It's because, but part of it, Taliba, is it is the pressure of the financial burden of children. And today, when this is going to lead into this
Yeah.
pretty quickly,
You know.
because one of the pieces of data, I'm a data person as well, that I saw that came across my computer today was about what is a livable wage, because they were talking about again Bernie and Hillary and their different views of what a livable wage really is, and is $12 okay? Just if you have one adult, you have a single parent with one child, okay? Just take a random guess at what a livable wage per hour would be for that one adult with that one child.
I know it'd be well above $15 an hour.
Actually, it's $25.28. This is for New London County. I'm not talking about Fairfield County or Hartford County. This is New London County. In order to support one adult and one child, that's what it would take. $25.28 an hour. And what that pays for, okay, is just the food, the child care. We're assuming this is a child. Child care is almost as expensive as sending your child to UConn.
Yes.
Almost, not quite.
We've been looking at it. It's just
For one
unreal.
child. You're looking easily at $9,500 a year for one child.
Yes.
That's is that about what
Yeah,
you're...
that's definitely what we've seen. Looking at different schools for my son, we went to quite a few of the private schools. We felt like, we could never have afforded that when we were younger.
Right.
And even though our parents work like crazy and they took the best care of us that they could, they just couldn't make enough. They couldn't get out of that system that's there set up for them. And now that Keith, he's completely amazing with our little guy and completely in love with him.
I know. I have seen your husband interact with your son.
That is his life.
It is, yep.
Little Keith is his life. But, watching him and how he can support him and take care of us as a family while I'm not working, because I loved work. I started working as soon as I could. But looking at how much it would be for us to just to have a decent place for him to go for daycare, childcare here in Connecticut was completely not worth it.
Right.
I wouldn't even made enough if I worked part-time just in gas to get him to where the decent ones are or, the ones that don't have the overcrowding or, because that's an issue as well, closing all these schools, trying to condense things. It's so easy to forget that these kids matter and that they're important. It's real easy for you when you're in an office, not there at the schools, to say, oh, well, we could just switch this around and close that down or move these things here,
right,
without realizing how that affects people. The rents here, I remember when I was younger and I was looking for my first apartment. The apartments behind ShopRite were like $300 a month. When I finally got of age and realized, I can't afford to move out of my own, they were almost at $900 a month. And
$900 a month.
Yes,
then.
they were. No,
Wow.
that was. Well, I am a little older, but I'm trying to not tell my age.
No, but $900 a month doesn't even come close. Because today, for a single adult,
Yes.
And they have to make at least almost $24,000 a year just to be able to afford food, medical, housing, transportation, and one other category that probably includes clothing and other essentials and emergencies.
God forbid you have to buy shampoo to wash your hair.
Right.
You want soap in your
but
bathroom.
for housing, with $23,700 a year, your apartment cannot cost more than $684.
And this is what people are dealing with.
Yeah.
This is what their reality is. And
we met a young lady. I don't know if you met her. I met her. You gave me some applications for her.
Yes.
And I visited her in her home, and she is scared to death there because it is a street that is known for drugs. She's pregnant. She was with her significant other, but he didn't have a job. She works. She's trying to work. She's got a part-time job. Would love to get a full-time job. But he wasn't contributing at all to the income for that apartment. At the same time, he did nothing to make the apartment better, and the friends that he had were scary to her. So one of her thoughts, her dad came when I was speaking with her in her home, and he was desperate to try to help her get out of there. Because the street is known to be a place where that is an unsafe street. That's how she perceives it. So and everything is in your perception. Okay, so I can't even imagine trying to find.
And when you look at things or situations like that, and you realize that it's about, I can't even remember, what is the Ask Alice? Do you know Alice Sheet from, I can't think, my brain. But there was information and data that I got from a meeting that I had gone to, and it was talking about people living just above the poverty line. And for Norwich, that's 50% out of the 40,000 people that live here, 50% are just above the poverty line, which means you have to, you need some representation from that 50%. You need some people up there with their hands in it that are really living this to be able to open the eyes of the others, because it's so easy to, you know, enjoy where you are and not think about what's really happening, the immigrants and the people that are here working, starting businesses, you know, coming up with ideas to improve the place that they live in, that they've fallen in love with. Just because they're not as set up as you are doesn't mean they don't matter. And that's why I get so passionate about these things, because
well, 23,000
you can't
no, this, to me, that income for one person, for one adult, when it doesn't take into any consideration for an adult who has to save for retirement. There's no money there to save for retirement. There's no money there. I mean, for clothing. Okay?
They're just trying to survive. They want a roof over their head, they want food in their fridge, and they want to be able to occasionally keep the lights on. Don't worry about cable. For transportation is the #1 thing so that they can get back to work, which is just really hard here. You know, waiting so long. You hear constantly how, you know, it takes 2 hours to get anywhere in Norwich when you're taking the bus. That's not okay. Then you talk about the schools, how they're performing. Why? Because a kid got sick and it took 2 hours, literally 4 hours, 2 hours to get there. Then you have to wait an hour, or, you know what I mean, however long it takes to get back, and the day is done. It's just a bad cycle. And honestly, just having people just think about these things and start to work on them and really understand why it's so important. It's just, you can't.
But when you look at something like this and recognize that the only thing that these basic amounts of money will pay for, just this, it doesn't, nothing else is included. Food, if you don't have a child, we can skip over the child care, but it would be food, medical, housing, transportation. That's it. And with a small amount for other, which could be clothing.
9 times out of 10, the majority of those people are probably not even worrying about their own health, because if they have a child, that's where that goes to. And yeah, you know, this is
you want to hear an astounding figure? This is, if you have one adult, a single parent with 3 children. Let's say, I mean, people get divorced. Okay, and not all husbands are responsible. And you have women that are left with to raise the responsibility. Let's say it's of 3 children. In order for her just to meet those simple requirements in New London County, it takes $77,000 a year. That would have to be her salary. That single parent would have to make at least $77,000. That's $37.06 an hour. Now, if the wife dies, that could be the husband. Okay, it's not just necessarily the wife.
Definitely.
But when you are a single parent, just to provide those basic necessities, and that's what they call a living wage. Okay, just a living wage. I mean, that to me, that one figure to me was astonishing.
It's amazing, but
I mean, if you have
sad that a lot of people don't understand, you know, the reality. Though that's what we should be making, but so many are surviving on so much less, just barely.
But you know what happens? Like even in Norwich, you saw the bulletin last year when it had to on the front page headline the people that were making $100,000 in Norwich. Well, if any one of those men or women had children and they were single, just to be able to survive with a living wage, they would have to be making at least $77,000 a year.
Yeah, and
At
it was
just-
off. That was
That's without retirement.
yeah, nothing.
You know, that's without any bringing your children to any. You talked about the places the mom groups go. All of that is not free.
No.
Okay, you cannot go to a lot of these places. Let's take the kids to a movie,
No.
a simple night out. That is not.
No,
That's
it can't
part of the
happen.
other.
Mhm.
So it's going to come out of your clothing allowance in
Yeah,
order to
that-
let the kids
it's not
go to a movie.
Yeah.
Now, you know, you can only look at that. That's why it angers me that people would get so upset that the teachers or the firemen or the policemen or, you know, people that are taking care of the real services in this community were being paid a living wage, plus they could have something for their retirement.
Yeah.
You know,
it's
I mean, that
not
is what.
important for them. They don't feel that's an important thing.
But that's when you are at a race to go to the bottom. If you're not at the race to make that money, you're going to say, you know, oh no, they shouldn't be making that. Look at, I'm only making this. You want everybody to be at the race to the bottom? We're heading there.
That's the mindset that they have.
Because that's a good segue for us to get into the TPP, which is my
Yes.
next favorite
Yes, you're right.
subject. You want to talk about the TPP a little bit?
I think you have it covered. I love when you talk, because this is you know, I know where my passions are and yours, but this is, I like
But
your passion.
to me, when you recognize that the Trans-Pacific Partnership, and again, I recognize that most of our viewers still don't really understand it.
No.
They have not seen, like, now that the TPP has been signed, you're looking at the TTIP, which is the Atlantic
Oh, yes. And
trade agreement, and not one news broadcast showed the riots in Britain. Not one.
they would never want. It's
So
just not.
we have citizens around the world that recognize that everyone will be at a race to the bottom. At the same time, our democracy is gone.
Yep.
Because you are now under basically corporate rule. And then when you get to, after both of those trade agreements are signed, they're then going into the TISA, which is the service agreement. And if that doesn't scare the pants off of everyone, then their eyes are totally shut and they're ignoring it. Because that one...
It's not even that. I think that a lot of them just, it's sort of like, not to bring it back to Bernie, but just seeing how he's doing, it's kind of, they're playing that game where look at this, don't look at that, and they're choosing to do it. Even when you spare,
make that clearer to
when
me.
you, like Bernie's campaign, how it's running right now, it's making it easier for them to focus on that as opposed to what's really happening. There are a lot of things that are being signed and being done that people don't hear about until after it's done.
Right.
And then they don't make a stink about it, but they can make a stink about Bernie. They can raise all kinds of, you know, riots and, you know,
because
the
he
Ku Klux
wants
Klan coming out.
$15.
Exactly.
He wants to give
The
everything
small
away
stuff.
for free.
It's so easy to pick on those as opposed to the actual political revolution, which involves getting involved in these types of things, understanding these deals, realizing how, you know, he's not going to change all that, but we can.
We can.
To me, now learning about it is clear as day, but it's very hard for other people to get out of that. Well, this is what the news is saying. This is what, you know, I have to follow this. I have to hate Bernie because he's going to, you know, turn our country into
a socialist country.
Exactly. God
there
forbid.
isn't a socialist country anymore, folks. We hate to tell you.
Oh, my
what
goodness.
this country is today is a plutocracy. Please look that up. A plutocracy. It means it's a government or society that is run by the wealthy. That is what we are. There was the study that was done at Princeton University. That is a reputable school, by the way. Princeton University, if you haven't heard it, please look that one up. That is a really reputable school. They did a study that actually showed that we do not have, we are more of a plutocracy than we are a democracy. And when you look at even how the campaigns are going,
Yes.
when Bernie already, right now, with just 3 states having been heard from, Bernie has 63% of the actual vote. The actual vote by people in those 3 states, total,
just can't believe it, though.
63% of all the people that voted, whether it was a caucus or the primary, 63% of them
So
voted for
fantastic.
Bernie. 38% voted for Hillary.
And they, you know, it's still that
And she's
mindset
winning.
of them.
She-
Yeah,
in people's
following
minds,
it.
they
can't
are
get it out
saying,
of their
"Oh,
heads that that's a lie.
It's 60
They just can't admit to themselves that this is what's really happening.
But
And
when they don't see what's happening, what the government is doing now, and they don't understand that people that have really do have an understanding of it, realize that Bernie 10 years ago voted against the TPP, voted against it when it came up in Congress again. I mean, he has consistently been opposed to it. He voted against NAFTA because these trade agreements are not good for the American people. It's a race to the bottom. And then they want to say, well, it's because Americans aren't productive. We have a higher productivity today than ever before in history. And yet people are not even living
they're just barely
a living
surviving.
wage. They don't even get paid a living wage. So consequently, we have corporate welfare because the corporations don't pay them, but they still have to have health care. So we provide Medicaid. They're working.
But they still need that support. They can't make enough.
They
They're
cannot
not
get
surviving.
out.
They're not. Even like for me, it's sort of breaking it down a little simpler. You know, you have a single mother living here in Norwich, working a full-time job and a part-time job.
Both?
She's got, she's
You're
working
talking
both.
about a real
full-time,
person.
yes, a real person that I met. And she wants to, because she had a separation and the gentleman left, and she has her younger daughter, and they're just barely making it. You know, she's doing what she can to pay her rent, keep, you know, the utilities, everything on, and everything great, but she needs rental assistance. That comes into play. The government provides that for people that are in need. And childcare, some of that they subsidize and they help out with. It was the holidays. The holidays came along, and she made, I think, maybe $1,000 more before taxes. What happens is the state automatically sends somebody in to find out why she made so much more. If you don't report it within 10 days, they raise your rent. Because you're making 10 days is all you get. That's it. So how is that person supposed to save money to get off the system? How is that person supposed to plan for a future when every time they make more money, they get penalized?
Was she making more than $52,000 a year?
No, I can tell you that, no.
Because one adult and one child, a living wage in New London County for one adult with one child is $52,580.
No.
Anything less than that, you cannot survive.
Nope.
And the state says, no, we're
In
going to
10
raise
days.
your rent.
If you don't report that. So where do you want these people to go? What do you expect to happen when you set up a system that constantly keeps them in the loop? You can't do better. You can't get better. Because as soon as you try, we need to raise your rent. Oh, we need to take that money back. Or you have to pay us back whatever you've earned from us, or whatever, you know, deposits or breaks that we've given you. People, you know, that need the food assistance on food stamps. There are young ones that are trying to go to school, working full time, and they need assistance, they need help. That job isn't helping them get everything else that they need, like their books and supplies for going to school. That stuff costs.
Right.
So they need help with getting groceries while they're going to school. They'll provide for that, but God forbid if you take a few extra hours, then, oh, we're gonna cut your food stamps. You can't eat this. You made a little too much money, but that money went to school. That went to pay for something better. It's just, you know, these are the real stories of these people that are living on this, you know, under this living wage.
Right.
It's
not.
It's a joke.
It's a survival wage. And actually, for the poverty wages on these things are incredible. I mean, there's nothing over $13
No.
for all of these categories, that nothing over that would bring you out of poverty. Not one of
And one thing that really I learned a lot about, because I was also ignorant to this fact of, when I was younger, I started working in fast food restaurant, and that was where I learned how to be on the job and clock in, be on time, you know, just the rules.
Right.
But that's
rules.
changed even from me to now. You have parents that are working in these fast food restaurants that have 4 or 5 children and that are possibly going to school because they didn't finish their degree, because whatever, life happened, and now they're going back. These are people that are working. They are trying their best to support for their families, but those higher end jobs aren't available to them.
Right.
And even some of them that do go to college to better themselves, they're not guaranteed any job like that with money anyways, because they're not around here.
Right.
So you have to, it's like building that compassion and learning it. I had to learn it. Everybody else has to learn it, because that's the only way we can move forward with any of this.
You know, there was, my daughter is every year, when the Academy Awards start to come out, we have to make our picks of all the best films. So my husband and I scramble to go see as many as we can to play with her.
Nice.
We still play games.
That's awesome.
We just saw The Big Short. This is about the crash of Wall Street.
Oh, okay.
This movie was incredible. I'm not talking about the acting. I'm talking about a visualization of actually how this crash occurred, and when you see it, it seems like it is almost impossible that these bankers did not go to jail. No, you realize when you watch this movie, you realize what they did. You realize how they did it, and it was deliberate. You know, it really is amazing that they did not go to jail. And if nobody else, I'm going to recommend the movie.
Yeah.
You have to go and see The Big Short. Actually, it's on Netflix now.
Okay.
Or pay-per-view. It's on one of those. But if you can get to see that movie, please do. Because when you talk about breaking up the banks, it's essential, because they're doing it again. Everything they did then, they're doing again now. And again, going back, I hate to keep bringing Bernie up, but there is a real reason. There's a real reason why, when you understand the dynamics of what is happening around you, why you can't get out, why people get trapped, and who's trapping you. You have to then, if you're not involved, and you're right, this is a political revolution. It's not just an election.
It's odd how people are afraid to keep saying that or having it be a part, but it really is, because, you know, even Democrats and Republicans alike, they're fed up.
Yes, both.
And don't feel like they know where to go or what to do. So my advice would be to get involved, get active, strengthen your party, and make it what you know it should be. Understand that you can make changes in there by just getting active, getting involved. It's nothing stopping you from saying, that's not right, that's not what our party's supposed to be about. Let's go out and let's try to change it. It doesn't cost anything to sign up and get active.
And then when you realize you have a candidate that is willing
to do those things,
to be that courageous, to face that kind of power, and to not only face that power, but to bring the rest of his party back in line, instead of letting them kind of shift over to the, I mean, where you don't see a real difference between the Democrats and Republicans.
It's easy to stay where you are. It's hard work to change it and make it what it should have been.
But the problem is, we're not going to stay where we are.
No.
That is the problem. When people realize that you're going down this road now, it's like going right down this table and off the edge. Because if we don't do it now, and everybody wakes up 10 years from now under real corporate rule, where your fire department is not public, you then have to pay for that protection. the city doesn't have to worry about providing fire service. Isn't that great?
I know a lot of people love that.
Yeah, but would they actually love to have the fire department not be a public fire department? I mean, think about it.
Or what
your
scares
police-
me is they're just so blind to it or don't want to talk about it. That's where I'm like, you know, you really can't stop. A lot of people, you know, even when Bernie didn't, well, to me, he won. With the numbers that he has, this last one, they're upset. It was interesting to see how many people are waking up and realizing that this isn't the end. This is like a boxing match, and we're only in round 2.
Right.
There's so much more to go, and even when he's in office, there's still a lot of work that we need to do and keep doing. So just
because he said all along, this is not about him.
nope.
It's he's not going to be able to accomplish this.
Nope.
No president
In his
can,
term.
unless you have that type of political revolution where you have people actually engaged in what is happening in our government right now.
Yes.
Because there is no, I mean, when you look at it, why would you trust the people that are there right now? Why? So if you're not going to be engaged and you're going to think you're going to trust them to do what's right, look at what they have done already, and then tell me that you trust them. And if you trust them, you've been asleep. Please, you know, I mean, wake up to what corporate rule actually is. People didn't like when they all of a sudden saw tanks going down the street in Ferguson.
Oh, I remember. Oh my God.
Okay?
Yes.
They thought, that's not America. They saw tanks with uniformed, whatever they were. They looked like some military, paramilitary people with Uzis. I don't know what those guns
There
were.
were people even talking about it here in Norwich because we saw for a while there a lot of the military trucks coming in and, you know, getting set up. We didn't, you know, people were scared. They didn't know what was going on. But then it just, you know, it kind of fades. But they have to realize that this isn't going to fade.
This isn't going to
This
fade.
isn't going anywhere.
Because again, if you don't have a public fire department, think of not having a public police department and having something like Blackwater patrolling your streets. The freedom of speech has been so perverted that they think that freedom of speech can be bought, and if money is actually speech, then freedom isn't free.
No.
Free speech is not free. While we still have it, we had better use it. So both Taliba and I are in total agreement on this. We believe that you have to be involved, that it doesn't matter at this point where you stand politically. You have to actually become involved and engaged in what's really happening. No name calling, no spreading rumors, none of the, really talk about what the real issues are.
And
Taliba, thank you.
Thank
You got to come back.
That's great. Thank you.
We'll see you next week.